In this series of videos, I will describe how to use Cambam, the Cambam Hypocycloid plugin, and Rhino to make a 3D model of a compact rotary table with a high gear ratio. To make this kind of gearbox work and have low backlash, you will have to hold very tight tolerances, use the proper materials, and make sure that when you assemble the parts, everything is very clean. Cambam is a very affordable and useful CAD/CAM software package that I highly recommend. Cambam is especially convenient for this project as there is a free plugin for it called Hypocycloid that can be found at the Cambam forum. The plugin has a few small quirks which I have listed, but these are easy to work around. This is the Hypocycloid zip file that you need to download. In it is a DLL file which you move to the directory Program Files, x86, Cambam Plus, Plugins. Once you copy it in this directory, you're ready to go. To start, go to Plugins, Hypocycloid Generator, enter in the values here, and highlight or put checks in the boxes here to display what you want to be shown on the screen, and hit Generate. As I mentioned, Cambam has a few quirks I discovered, none of them very major. The first one is when you go into Options, there's a setting called Arc Display Degrees, and all this does is make arcs look smoother when displayed on the screen. It has nothing to do with precision of the output. The thing I noticed is with circles as opposed to arcs, there's no setting for this resolution. The circle will always be output with 72 sides, straight lines. Another quirk was that in the settings, the pin bolt diameter isn't really the diameter, it's a radius. It's from this point out to this point. The last of the quirks, and probably the most important, is that this section of the profile is where it starts and ends, and there's a small overlap in the line segments, and this can cause a problem when you export the file into other programs and want to work with it. There are a couple of settings that you may or may not want to use. These are pressure angle and offset pressure angle, and they are located right here and here. These settings are for removing some material at the peaks and valleys of the cam profile for the purpose of creating clearance between the cam and the pins. Without this clearance, the gearbox is more likely to bind up. I prefer to modify the cam profile in Rhino. If you decide to use these settings, a good place to start might be something like 70 or 80 for the pressure angle and a couple thousandths for the offset. You can choose whether to display or generate the pressure angle line with this check box here. Hit Generate, and there it is. I'll zoom in so you can see what it looks like, and you can see where the cam profile crosses these two lines, which are controlled by this setting here, the pressure angle. It removes the peak and the valley to create clearance. The smaller that this value is, the closer the lines together and the more it cuts material out. The offset value right here determines how deep that this material is removed. A couple of things to take note of are the gear ratio will be the number of lobes on the cam, and there will always be one more pin than the lobes on the cam. When the cam profile is generated, it's offset by the value of the eccentricity. So after you generate the DXF file, when you go to machine it, you have to make sure you take this origin into consideration. Another thing to take note of is the output holes in the cam, which are these red circles, will always be the pin diameter, which is magenta, plus 2 times the value of the eccentricity. One of the quirks I mentioned has to do with the cam profile overlapping at the start and end points. I don't think this is an issue with Cambam. I think it has more to do with the Hypocycloid plugin. But the way I found to fix this was first to turn off a few things in the layers here by right-clicking on it and then just pick hide. Then it's easy to zoom in, and you'll want to first draw a line crossing the start and stop point. Now when you zoom in, you'll notice that this is just one big line or profile. So the first thing you have to do is go Edit, Explode. And now you see all these entities it's made up of. And you can see there's one larger section here and one here. And there's the overlapping section. But there's also a single entity here that's generated where they both overlap. So first you delete that. Now use the break at intersection command. Select the line you want to trim and hold down the control and select the crossing line you made. And let's see, have to choose them first and then hit break intersection. And then it'll want a tolerance. I use 1/1000th of an inch. Hit OK. And that should have done the trick. So now we can go in and select the crossing, and there's where we split it at. Hit delete, and there are no more overlapping lines. Now you're ready to export as a DXF, or you can just go ahead and machine this in Cambam. That's the end of this video.